Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Howard. I'm the editor and publisher at Height of Land Publications in Jeffersonville, Vermont. We were founded in 2002, and at the time, we were delighted to bring an outdoor business to a place that I love and that the co-founders love. Anybody that's done rural economic development work knows how difficult it is, and hearing the governor and Wendy talk about that work kind of brought me back a little bit to about a decade ago when I was in the legislature. And I remember thinking at the time how sad it was to see companies like Rossignol and Merrill leave the state to go to places that frankly weren't as cool as Vermont. And so in 2010 or 12, I don't remember, I took Peter Shumlin, governor at the time, to the Outdoor Retailers Show in Salt Lake City, and we took a trip up to Park City where Rossi was then headquartered. And I'll never forget walking into that place and seeing all these Vermonters that had had to uproot and move out there, and how psyched they were to have the governor of the state come and say hello, because quite frankly, prior to that, no one had said hello to them before they left, or goodbye. And I mean that. That was tough. When we got back to Vermont, Alex McLean, Peter's, I forget, some sort of cabinet person. Someone's lipping it to me. I don't remember. She goes, "Well, Howie, the governor wants to know what you guys want." And there were a bunch of us, Drew and Hal and Andrew. And I remember thinking, like, well, I don't really know what we want, actually. And then I got out of politics. I should have never been there to begin with. At any rate, I'm so proud of the people in this room that have done this work, this really hard economic development work. It is a grind. It is thankless at times. And frankly, I know we all wonder, like, if it's really working. And I'm here to tell you, like, look around. 10 years later, it is working. Look at what we've done, what you all have done. It's super impressive. So I could go on, and I'm gonna, before I do go on, however, I'm gonna just say 48 hours ago, I was bobbing on a ship in the Drake Passage. I got back at midnight last night, and I'm totally smoked. So please have mercy on me. And I ask that of our panelists too. When Wendy reached out to ask if I could host this panel entitled Recreating the Outdoor Economy, a Time for Thinking Differently, all I could think of at the time was like, okay, it's about flood recovery. And I kind of think it was to a certain degree. And then I thought, well, maybe it's about COVID recovery. And it's about all of those things and continuing to grind. So let me introduce our panel. And I will simply introduce you, and then you can each have the floor and talk about what you're all about. To my right, Claire Ju, founder of Hootie Hoo, a children's outdoor apparel line.
Yes. Can you hear me? Thank you. Hi, my name is Claire Ju. Our name is not Hootie Hoo, it's Hootie Hoo. It's a calling to call all the kids to go outside. We build high quality technical apparel, supporting kids to stay outside longer so they can build up that resiliency and perseverance to carry on their life and conquer all the difficulties and challenges.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Next is Wei Wei Wong.
You
Is that
got it.
okay?
Yep.
Is that good?
Got it.
Executive Director, Community and Policy for Vermont Professionals of Color Network.
Co-executive director, my other
Co-executive director.
right there. Tino, yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about your organization?
Yes, we are a statewide nonprofit organization supporting the advancement of prosperity for BIPOC folks across the state. And we support professionals, business owners, and youth.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nate Farmaleri. Yeah, good. Director of Communications and Strategic Initiatives for the Agency of Commerce and Community Development.
Yeah, hello, Nate. The agency is made up of 3 departments: Department of Tourism and Marketing, Department of Economic Development, and Department of Housing and Community Development. So as a complete agency, we are very ingrained in all the work that you folks are doing and VOREC, and run a lot of different programs that try to support this sector and these collaborations.
Welcome. And finally, Randy Ellis, Brand Director, First Stop Board Barn in Killington.
Thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Randy Ellis. I grew up in Killington, Vermont. Spent my whole life there. Moved to New York City for 10 years. Came back helping out my family. This will be our 44th year in business. We do ski, snowboard, bike, and paddle sports. Thanks for having us.
Randy, let's keep it with you. Our company publishes active outdoor, adventure publications, and so we have a pretty good read on what's happening with brands that may want to advertise with us. And we know we have a bike shop as well, Bootlegger Bikes in Jeffersonville, in our building. And so we see things like too much inventory at the end of COVID. We think about things like, well, everybody got their bike or everybody bought their touring skis during COVID. What are we going to do? How does it look from your perspective? And when we think about resiliency and anything that the state can do to help small businesses like your own kind of get to next year to more firm footing, because let's face it, we're still recovering from COVID. I mean, the economy is wonky, no?
Yes. I think when we chatted the other day, I mentioned this summer was kind of a perfect storm, both in the weather sense as well as economic kind of downturn. With our business, we only have so much space, but we are packed to the roof, through the rafters, and even outside behind the building. When we got flooded this summer, it was like 2 days. There was like Friday and again on Monday, and we pretty much lost all of our paddle sports business for the rest of the summer because the lakes nearby us, we're not safe to swim in. And if clearly, even when they said they were, you look at them looking a little murky still to this day. And one idea I had, the one part of our business that's still been fairly strong is e-bikes. And there's been a great incentive from both the state and Green Mountain Power, a rebate that's gotten people who honestly were probably never really a cyclist into cycling, and now active participants. I have customers who are e-biking and riding way more than my diehard cyclists. And I was saying that grant could potentially, is there a way for us as, VOBA, VOREC, and the state of Vermont to transition that into a winter version to get more people outside in the winter sports, whether it's ski, snowboard, snowshoe, winter clothing, cross-country ski, snowmobiling, whatever that may be. I think there's a real opportunity to get more people into outdoor winter sports. While we are I would consider majority of people in Vermont are fairly outdoorsy and athletic. There's a lot of people who live in our towns and the surrounding towns around Killington who don't ski or snowboard. So whether it's an incentive to buy gear to get outside, get that new winter jacket or that new ski setup, or is it an incentive with, we talked about if you buy a ski or snowboard or winter jacket at your local retailer or local business that we have here, can you get a free lift ticket so you can get out there and enjoy it? So those are a few ideas we had talked about. How can we transition the success of that e-bike incentive to get more people into winter sports? Because we all know it's very expensive, and most of us probably joined these different companies or businesses so you could make it a little more accessible. Most people don't have that option.
What do you say, Nate? Can we get that done?
Yes.
Sweet.
There's a legislator in the room, right?
I'm serious. What would it take to do something like that? I mean, I know you are the implementers, not the policymakers, right, in the agency. But it sounds great to me. I mean, we've watched e-bikes fly out of the building this year. It's staggering.
Yeah, I think one thing you could compare it to is electric vehicles. There's a lot of incentives going around related to that, and that's some of that is settlement money from various lawsuits. But I think that's an area to look at and how they're doing it across the state with those kinds of incentives. It could be a model for looking at something like that.
Can you point out the legislator in the room? Raise your hand if you're in the House or Senate. Excellent. Thank you. Wei, when we talk about recovery and resiliency, there's a specific population in the state of Vermont, albeit small, who has been in that sort of state for a long, long time, right? Trying to come into an existing community that may seem intimidating, extremely white, and
Not that welcoming at a lot of
perhaps not
times.
that welcoming. You guys did a study this year. Can you start with that and then talk about how the folks in this room can consider what they can do to do a little of this?
Yeah,
Bring people in.
absolutely. So the Vermont Professionals of Color Network, we worked with Main Street Alliance on a small business survey and listening sessions. In total, we had about 500 respondents across BIPOC, women, rural, veteran-owned businesses. And then we as VTPOC conducted BIPOC-specific listening sessions across all sectors. And we conducted 21 listening sessions. We talked to like 86 business owners. And it was really incredible. I will say that we got a limited number of BIPOC-owned businesses that were specifically outdoors, but we know that they are out there. I mean, there's representation here today, and they need supports that are not necessarily different than what all businesses need: access to capital, access to resources to support their business development, access to infrastructure, like we all do, like in the state, especially around wireless, right? But what the difference is that they have a lot of historical barriers, right? Whether it's structural racism, whether it's lack of generational wealth that can lead to lack of generational knowledge about existing resources. So being able to open up those doors, and the way that I think about access is not just like, we say access, and what does that actually mean? It means availability of a resource, physical accessibility of a resource, the affordability of a resource, accommodation of the individual by that resource, and acceptability, trust, building that trust for that resource by the individual, and also awareness. And a lot of times when folks are coming into the state, there's a lack of awareness of what the resources are. There's over 6,500 nonprofits in the state. What do they all do? You Google something and it's like, shit, like I don't know who to turn to, right? And so we're asking these individuals who don't have a support system already embedded in the community. They didn't go to high school with the loan officer. Like their father is not friends with the town clerk. So they have to build that structure themselves. And it's really, really hard, especially when you don't look like anybody else. There's this era of exclusivity here in Vermont, where especially in rural areas, you go to the same plumber and that plumber serves everybody. And if that plumber doesn't want to serve you, you don't get service. Like, so what do people do? And that same thing can go for businesses, right? So what we have created is an organization that supports some businesses and professionals in that way. So we are talking to places like VOBA, we're talking to other organizations and trying to understand what's available, because then we're building trust on both sides. So I can go to Claire and say, hey, okay, you need a grant for XYZ. Actually, CVEDC has something right now that you're eligible for. CVEDC is the Central Vermont Economic Development Authority. CBD. Thank you. Show.
Get Wendy back up here.
Thank you. I was like, oh god. And they do have like a technical assistance opportunity right now that businesses can apply for. I encourage you to all do that. And some of that information is not getting to the right resources because we all work within our internal networks. And when BIPOC businesses are outside of those networks, they don't hear about it until it's too late. A lot of people didn't apply for PPP loans because they heard about it too late, or they didn't have the capacity. You're all business owners. Like, you want to focus on the business and not on finding like those resources to do the work that you want to be doing. It's odd, right? And what I will say is, what I love to see the state do is, one, to support BIPOC-owned businesses, because the BIPOC community, there are about 52,000 individuals, that includes children, in the state who are BIPOC identified. And they contribute over $1 billion of economic impact to the state every single year. That's a lot of money for a small population of the state. So if we are supporting people, supporting business owners, BIPOC business owners, minority-owned business owners, tend to hire from within the community more often than not. That is literally in the literature, academic literature. And so they're contributing back, but one of the things that they don't have is that structural support for them to succeed, for them to scale up, for them to have a brick and mortar, right? So giving them that support, because that benefits you. Seeing Claire or Angel or, Power Magazine represented in the community, that encourages us to do it. I'll give you an example. So REI, over the last couple of years, started to offer Soul Simone earrings on stock in their Williston store. I have not thought about REI since I was 12 years old. And I went into REI, I bought 2 backpacks, and I didn't even buy any Soul Simone like products. I bought 2 backpacks that were like $90 each, right? And I'm like, when am I gonna use this? Okay. But that made me think about REI as an option again, right? Because it comes back into the consciousness because there's representation already there, and it's a safe place for me to go there. Supporting in that way. And then also, all of you, because I know Tino would want me to say this, you can support BIPOC outdoor business owners by procuring from them. So if you're having a meeting and you need lunch from a purveyor, go to our BIPOC business directory. We have the most comprehensive BIPOC business directory on our website, vtpoc.net. And you can order something from them, because if you're supporting BIPOC-owned businesses, you become, you're part of their consciousness, and they start telling their friends that you're a business that has supported them, and they're gonna support you in return. So those are the 2 things that I think you should take away, is support the BIPOC-owned businesses, because it's not a zero-sum game. We are working to increase representation in this industry, and then you're going to get people who are going to be skiing, like kids who are BIPOC, wanting to wear Claire's products, parents who are like, oh, well, if my kids are going to learn, I want to learn. So there's so many benefits. I could go on and on. I've taken up a lot of time. So there you go.
It's all good. Thank you. And I think it's a great opportunity to segue to Claire, who has done this. Claire, take us back to your Burton days and when the spark for Hootie Hoo first arrived in your mind.
Say it with your chest. Hootie hoo.
Hootie Hoo.
Oh, I wasn't.
You guys did a great job. So it's I was with Burton for 9+ years. This idea really started during pandemic. When I had to handle my full-time job, I have to take care of my 2 kids at home, homeschool. I was like, oh my gosh. And then my Chinese mom, only speak Chinese, pushed me and said, hey, you supposed to teach your kids Chinese every day. I was like, okay. So that was a lot of pressure, but that really gave me made me to think like, how okay, so I'm strong enough to take care of the whole family, but how about my kids? What if they one day they have to face this situation by themselves? Can they handle this? Can they handle staying inside for 6 months, not losing their mind? So that really made me think about that. And then that was during that winter, and then it was really cold. And then I saw them just went out and play because they didn't have anywhere else to go. They have to just inside, outside. So they went out and they played and they got hurt. And then they just, it's okay, mama, it's fine. I was like, okay, so maybe that's the way to do it. So that's why I started to thinking I should keep my kids outside longer. And then I have to say I worked in this industry. I want to build really good gear for kids, as good as the adult gear. But if you have kids, you probably see, you know, the gear for kids are usually a little bit like the second hand, or not second hand, but not as technical as adult. But they are the one rolling in the snow. They are the one jumping in the mud puddle.
I have so many questions about the specific product, but no, but I'm thinking like the bike world, right? Remember 10 years ago, like kids' bikes, 40 pounds, this big. Are you making, and now the bikes are insane, so good, so expensive. People are paying the money, right? So there's that demand. Is your stuff super technical and expensive, and that's okay because people are spending the money? Is it that simple, or are you competing against Columbia?
Our products, we're not competing against Columbia, but if you think of the average quality, average lifetime, it's actually longer. We have really high technical product, 20K waterproof, which is, if you know Gore-Tex is 28K, which is the top. But we don't have our fancy pockets. We don't have a campus on the jacket. I just don't want to build those extra things for them because they don't need that. They don't need 10 pockets. Otherwise, they just put rocks in there. Yeah, right. This is a special rock, mama. I was like, okay. So I put all the money on the fabric. I put all the money on the installation. So that's what they need. So that's from there. You know, you can see the difference. And our products are sustainable, 100% recycled material and insulation. And then you can pass along to the other kids for a couple years.
So what have been some of your chief challenges to doing business, building a startup and building it in Vermont? Are there special challenges with the latter part, being here?
Yes. So we have I have a really hard time to get into brick and mortar stores. It is very hard to, I mean, it's not only because we are a new brand, also because, you know, the market is so saturated. Everyone is sitting on so many inventory. So they have a hard time to move that. I understand that. But for a new brand, I think, you know, for anyone who wants to start a new brand, it's so important to put your products in front of the customers. When they see it, when they see the value, and then they want to buy. If you don't have that chance to interact with your customers, you just don't get your products moving. So I have talked to quite a few stores in Burlington and in other resorts. I just had a hard time to getting into the brick and mortar stores. But luckily, I got REI in Williston took me in just as a special local buy program. I got to test my products in front of the customers, and we did really good sell through. We got into the store in January, which is like after the peak selling season already, but we did 50% sell through, which is phenomenal for a new brand.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm on our website right now. Randy, as we, when she said, when Claire said, January is after the core of the season, right? We all understand this in the ski world. How are you guys looking at this upcoming sales season? is it as simple as make it snow? Or are you worried about seeing sales in November from your competitors? How does that look to you today?
Yeah, so I would say, in general, having grown up in Vermont, I think we all have to face the reality that winter is shifting slightly later. So when you say, oh, the sales season's over in January, our busiest months, yes, the Christmas holiday, New Year's are very busy that week, 10 days. But our busiest months are January and February, and honestly, the first half of March for ski and snowboarding here in Vermont. I think a lot of families historically associate the holidays with like, oh, we'll go to Vermont and go skiing and there'll be snow on the ground. When was the last year we actually had snow on the ground and great ski conditions for Christmas? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we had a really good December. And there was one November that was really good, but then it poured rain like Christmas week. So I think from a marketing standpoint, resorts, I think are trying to shift people to come later, January, February, March, and even April. Sometimes the conditions are phenomenal. Most of the people who are not living in Vermont or New Hampshire probably are getting into spring in April. So it's a very short season. I think for us, we are small, so I feel really lucky. Like we order 1s and 2s, not 10s and 20s in different sizes. So I feel confident we'll be able to sell through a lot of our inventory at a fair price. But there's already people, I've been getting emails every day from, some of the brands that are here today, some of your biggest online retailers. I'm getting 10 emails a day, 50% off clearance sale. And I'm like, why are we promoting this going into ski season, snowboard season right now? Like we should be promoting new inventory. But I know you guys are loaded. We're loaded with gear. We got to move it. But I think, a lot of times when we're signing, placing our orders as brands and you guys are here, when you tell us, hey, we're not going to discount stuff until March 15th. And then last year we were seeing some early discounts. And again, in the summertime with our paddle sports and bike companies, we had bikes that hadn't even come in and they were already on prices online that were like on their website and our competitors that were at our costs and in some cases lower. And that's honest, people coming in like, hey, this is on this brand's website for, let's say $1,500. And I look at my costs. I'm like, really? Because we paid $1,800. And they're like, can you match this? And you're like, well, we need to put some money in the register because I have 15 employees that I need to pay at the end of the week. So our sales, it's a roller coaster always, but our margins this year are definitely putting us in a difficult spot. So I asked the brands here to think about, if you have partners who are placing huge orders and they can't either pay you or they can't sell what they're ordering at a reasonable margin, maybe you need to scale back some of their orders, take that back a little bit. And on your end too, if you're selling direct, which everyone is, and you should be, try to support your local vendors. We've had great success with locally.com and other things. Or when I say your vendors, your retailers, because I think the retail experience, so many people are on their computers all day. When they come into a store, they actually get a human connection and generally a better outfit of gear. So, and that's what we want to do. We want to have people go out, have a great time here in Vermont, have great gear, and want to come back again and eventually move here. So, yeah, or stay here.
Amen. One of the many things I failed to accomplish when I was in politics was moving Christmas back about a month into January. Seems like that would really solve it all. We have about 10 more minutes, and I'd like to open the floor up to questions. And I'll walk the mic around. Does anybody have any questions for any one of our panelists? Lisa Lynn.
You talked about some of the challenges of doing business here, particularly Claire. What are some of the opportunities? What are the good things that you're seeing? What has helped you that is really unique to Vermont?
That's a great question. Thank you. I feel like there's really a great vibe. People want to buy local. People want to support local brands. So I think that's a great opportunity if we can open up. I don't know. I talked about that last year. Like maybe we have an expo, like a outdoor expo. So bring those brands in front of customers, bring the brands to them. So people, because people really want to support local brands. And then that's why we did very well with REI in Williston. They took us in, so they displayed our products and people can see it. And then some moms, my kids' friends' moms, and say, "I saw your products in the store. It's so good. I'm gonna buy some." Because we only, like as a small brand, we only can afford an online store at this point. We cannot open a store, so it's really helpful for us to get, if we can get our stuff in, because Vermonters do want to see new things, do want to support local brands.
Yeah, I would second that. Vermonters want to support Vermont brands. As a business owner, I want to support Vermont brands. Like, I love Corinne with Skeeta, Hal and Sarah, the team from Darn Tough, our whole Burton family. Over the years, there's been a lot of other little brands and big brands we've worked with. People love buying Vermont beer and cheese. I think we should have more brands that are based here in Vermont as well, because people like buying those. Ski the East, obviously, right here. We do a ton with them as well. I think, there's a huge opportunity to brand Vermont. And that was one thing I was telling, if you have a brand and you're based in Vermont, you should be proud of that and tell people. Whenever I'm out west and I say I'm from Vermont, people instantly are like, "Oh my God." And they have a list of brands or beers or food or whatever it is that they love that's from Vermont. So we should leverage that really hard. Vermont is a great marketing piece. New Hampshire. I love New Hampshire too, but I have friends from there, and when they're out west and they say they're from New Hampshire, people are like, "Oh, yeah, that's where Tuckerman's is, right?" But there's not any brand connection. So we need to push Vermont brands and try to reinvest where we can. I think another opportunity you asked on, and I'll just be quick on it, trails, Vermont Mountain Bike Association with VOBA and VORAC, thank you so much. Our area in Vermont, in Killington area, when people now come to visit Vermont, they are blown away with the fact that we have about 200 miles of mountain bike trails within a 45-minute radius. And they're all levels for mountain biking. And that's amazing. I now have people come every week from not only just the East Coast, but I have friends from out west who now travel back in the summer to spend a week, 2 weeks, or even the whole summer. They work remote, they've got one of those jobs, and they're riding bikes in Vermont, and that is huge. And I'm so excited for the Velomont. The one thing I would urge people is most of the people in Vermont are pretty good at biking and running and hiking. I have friends from New York City who come up, and what we consider beginner friendly is way too intense. I had a customer, and he asked I told him I was coming here today. He said, "I'm 67. I can ski black diamonds, double black diamonds, no problem. I get on a bike." He's like, "I almost had a heart attack on your local trails. I want a more mellow pitch. I would consider it more of a multi-use path that someone could ride a basic bike on with Vermont Adaptive. Someone could get out there with their friends and family and actually enjoy it, not feel like it was too intense." We're really missing that in central Vermont. Burlington, I'm jealous of you, Stowe, Lemoy Valley Rail Trail, but central Vermont, we're very much lacking that. So that's one thing I would love to see kind of be a goal for the state, because you introduce people and then they get into it from there.
Can I actually also respond to that? Because I completely agree with you. Vermont Professionals of Color Network, we are currently working with the Nature Conservancy because they have such an amazing, so much public land that you can use, and they're really low, they're easy walks, right? And that's a great way to introduce the BIPOC community to spaces that they haven't been to before, because we're not going into like the NEK by ourselves. We're not going into Central Vermont by ourselves in certain places. And so it's a great way to introduce and then to like start to think about, okay, maybe we'll go kayaking or maybe we'll go skiing. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I've had many friends visit from New York, and their idea of riding a bike is a cruiser bike, no
Correct.
gears, and flat, paved, or dirt path, wide enough for like 3 bikes to go through, not one, barely wide enough. And also, too, like you were saying with hiking, I've taken friends on what most people in Killington would say the easiest hike, and they get to the top, and my best friend, she's from Jamaica, from New York, and she was like, this is where white people take people like me to die. And I was like, I'm like, Siobhan, no, not at all.
It's like a Get Out situation.
Yeah, she was like, I've seen this in the movies. Where are we going? And that to me was like alarming, because I brought another friend and he's like, yo, why are there no lights on out here? Like, just driving, there's no lights on the trails.
That's why we go in groups.
Yeah. So I think, yes, easier, closer, intertwined into your local communities is really important.
And I guess I would just put in a plug for the VOREC community grants on this, because that's really why they were established. And they allow these types of opportunities to open up. And I would argue it unlocks a lot of additional opportunity, because you're going to get those people into your communities, get them into the stores, buying your products and stuff like that. So a plug for that. There's $6 million out there. Get with your communities to try to develop these types of strategies and paths and other more, make it more accessible for all.
Thank you. David Schmidt has a question here.
Hi there. I've worked with a lot of small companies, and getting the brand in front of buyers is one of their biggest challenges. And that you can argue trade shows are going out of fashion, whatever, but it's still important for them to get out of the state. Claire has been in Vermont. I know Angel with US Sherpa has had a challenge getting out of Vermont. What resources are available for these small, tiny companies that have no money to get out to trade shows and get out of Vermont and get their product in front of other buyers outside this area?
Well, is it just international, Tim? Okay.
If it's an international buyer or someone there, you can go do a domestic trade show.
We have funds at ACCD to support that. You can connect with Tim in the back. But that can help get to those types of trade shows. And the whole point of those grants, it's federal funding that runs through ACCD to get businesses in front of those types of buyers. So that's one state resource, at least.
Thanks, Nate. Anybody else out here?
Hey, I'm Sam from down in Randolph. I don't mean to be the Debbie Downer in the room, but on NPR on the way up here, they were talking about plastics and how we've doubled global production of plastics in the last 20 years. So, and I just wanted to hear you guys rap a little bit about what you see the industry facing coming down the pike as we deal with PFAS legislation and this inventory issue.
That's not for me.
I think we'll let Claire take that one on, given.
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So to address for PFAS and also to address to plastic bags. So I just went to visit REI's headquarters in Seattle last month, and then in June I went to their one of their DC. So REI stop allowing vendors to ship their goods with poly bags, with individual poly bags, which is like if you did, then they're gonna fine you. It's 10 cents. 1 cent per bag. Think about that. So this is like I think it's a really revolutionary move. For us, like I've been working in government industry for years. This is the first time I was like, oh my gosh, how can I pack my garment? How can I keep them clean and do it? But you can find a way to do it. So I think that's a great move, and then we are moving away from plastic. And my company, when we shipped the stuff to REI, we stopped using poly bags. That's one thing. For the inventories, I think, Sam, from what I heard, inventory is moving. We're getting much better this year, this winter. After the whole year, we tried to kill the inventory. I think we get into a pretty good situation. But there's still a lot of inventory in there. We don't want to go on discount, as Randy was saying, but we have to get rid of the inventories before we can move forward. For the new brands, I would say it's a really good opportunity to get out there because the market needs new products. People are looking for new things. About 5 years ago, it's based on another research. About like 5 years ago, there were 5% products in the market were new products, new things. But this year, there were only 1.5% new things. So it's a big job. So that's also a big opportunity for the new brands, for young brands, to really get your product there. So we can make the connection between our products and our customers.
Thank you, and thanks, Sam, for that question. Nate, how best can, I'm sorry, Randy, do you want to speak to that too?
I was just going to say from a brand standpoint, I think it's good. Some brands are starting to adopt it, but over the last 5 years, I've told many brands this. If you have products that are truly not changing and going to carry forward into the following season, instead of discounting those, it would be nicer as a retailer, like, hey, our black and khaki ski and snowboard pants and certain gloves and neck gaiters and pieces that we know will sell again next year, but we had 1 or 2 left over. Encourage your retailers to fill in as they need. Obviously, you need to hold a little inventory to do that, and always introduce new pop colors and patterns. But I don't think we need to completely dump stuff that is still good and great product every spring or every fall. And that's, you're asking about kind of materials and pieces. That's more just smart, it's not saving the world in the sense like, oh, this is going to be less waste at some point, but it is potentially going to save a lot of shipping and moving of stuff that didn't necessarily need to get shipped and moved. So that's one thing there. Carry forward, I think, is good for the industry as well as the retailer and the consumer, and it holds margins better.
Thank you. Nate, help us wrap this up. How can those of us in the room who run businesses here best work with ACCD to grow their businesses?
Yeah, I think our agency and our programs and our initiatives and what we want to do are tied to creating an atmosphere that businesses can operate in. So when thinking about stuff that we're doing, we're trying to recruit that workforce that you need. We're trying to work on the housing issues so that your workers can find houses. So we're really about trying to create that atmosphere, and we want to hear from the business community. I know many of you interact with many of us at ACCD about your needs and wants. I think a couple things in terms of community revitalization and creating a space that people want to come here. We have $40 million committed to those types of projects in communities across the state. Tune in, we're going to have more announced, but that's 100 different projects with $40 million that are going to add daycare slots, add housing units, allow storefronts to reopen in downtowns. So a lot of this stuff is happening as a result of COVID, and you heard the governor talk about all of it working together. And that's a real commitment that he's challenged all of us in state government to do, is make sure that if we're going to do a water project in Waterbury and the road's dug up, should we put the lines down? What other revitalization projects can happen there? So I think it's trying to look at it holistically and create the space for you guys to grow, find your employees, and get the housing that's needed to sustain that.
Thank you. I get back to the name of this panel, Recreate the Outdoor Economy, a time for thinking differently. And I think in summation, it really comes down to supporting one another as Vermonters, as Vermont businesses. You can go to the VIPOC.net to support
VTPOC.net.
VTPOC, my bad, .net to support BIPOC-owned businesses. You can work with the ACCD on any number of projects. You can buy Hootie Hoo at REI and hopefully other retailers around soon
Also
And,
online.
and online. And you can go down and visit Randy in Killington. Thank you very much for hanging in there and enjoy the rest of the summit.